Nursing today is in dire straits. It is one of the most high-risk careers in the United States. Listen to some of this information. It's ranked one of the top 5 jobs that people are leaving in the United States today. It's one of the top 10 most dangerous jobs according to multiple news and science surveys. 40% of nurses have high risk of long-term sick leave. And that's according to the Journal of Occupational Medicine. The average nurse over 35 years old is on 5 medications. They cite limited time off, swing shifts, understaffing, patient volumes, and high stress in the workplace. You can't make women work 12 hours and not be allowed adequate amounts of time to eat and drink water throughout the day.
Welcome to Nurses Uncorked, where we pop the cork on everything in healthcare.
I'm your host, Nurse Jessica Seitz.
And I'm Nurse Erica.
On Nurses Uncorked, you get real, unfiltered facts and plenty of laughs.
Please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to rate, review, and download.
Become a member of our winery, where you get early access to the podcast, bonus episodes, ad-free content, and much more.
Now sit back, relax, and pour yourself a glass
as we uncork the truth in nursing. Wow, we're starting on a laugh already. Welcome back to Nurses Uncorked. We got myself, Nurse Jessica, the lovely Nurse Erica with some curls today, looking fabulous. And we've got another guest with us today. Welcome, Vince Pitstick. We're going to tell you guys about Vince in a moment, but Vince, welcome to Nurses Uncorked.
I'm glad to be here. Energy's good, vibes right. I think your listeners or viewers should strap in for a good hour.
It's going to be entertaining. It is. And I must say, your camera is spectacular. Clear. So if you guys want to see a great video, I don't know what he's using, but I'm going to have to get with him after because the quality is just superb.
Thank you so much. Yes, we put a lot into that. Yeah.
It's nice.
So
it's nice.
The part is you got to have a video editor live with you for a little while, and then it changes everything.
That's me. I can't move in with you. I can't move in with you, Vince. I'm sorry. My husband would be very upset. Take it away, Erica.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Vince. You may know him from some viral videos recently about nursing, which we'll get into. But with over 19 years of dedication to health and wellness, Vince Pitstick stands as a testament to the power of evolution in the realm of functional medicine and nutrition health. His journey, originating from humble beginnings as a child struck with a rare illness at age 8, fighting for 20 years to find freedom, became a personal trainer/nutrition coach, which blossomed into a role as a pioneer in lifestyle and nutrition coaching, dubbed functional health coaching. In 2012, Vince channeled his passion and knowledge into founding Vital Coaching. This venture was more than a business. It was a mission to offer a new form of concierge functional medicine delivered by a coach. From its inception, Vital Coaching was not just a company, but a beacon for those seeking a path to better health. Over the last decade, Vince has immersed himself in the practices and sciences of functional health. His relentless pursuit of knowledge and skill refinement led to the creation of the transformative 4F process, a comprehensive care plan for health and wellness, which is taught to medical practitioners and coaches all over the world. Today, Vital Coaching stands as the largest one-on-one health coaching companies in the U.S. Its mission and the mission of its health network is to fight global health issues one client at a time. This is not just a statement, but a reality being actualized daily. The 4F system is now offered in over 2,000 programs worldwide, reaching millions per year.
Wow.
Welcome,
Vince. The podcast is over. We're done.
When it's read out loud, it just seems like with me just sitting here listening to it,
we just summed it all up. Until next time.
It's a big deal, everybody. You should really care about what I have to say. My gosh, it says it's nice on a website, but
isn't that hard? It's hard to hear somebody talk about you and say your whole thing. It's just like, oh.
Yeah.
No.
And to summarize it all up, sick kid has to find a new drop out of the Western medical system, travels all over the United States, learns all about holistic, all kinds of different variable degrees of services, combines them together to get well, right? Then basically becomes, I got in my own program, developed it, training, nutrition, working with medical practitioners, then got picked up by a global health organization called Metagenics. And I was the rep and the clinical expert behind some of the biggest doctors in the country for 5 years. I saw how every doctor had their own shtick, their thing they did really well. I took all the shticks, I put it together in a system, I organized it, right? And then now that system, we teach other, we heal people with it, or we teach other practices, that system. And we're fighting for this new model of healthcare because I don't think we can fix the one that we have. Not that I don't love our practitioners, not that I don't love doctors, not that I'm against Western medicine. I just think the way that it's set up, if it can't even keep its own people healthy, like nurses and doctors who are sicker than their patients, how is that possibly? We all know logically that is not going to translate well to societal health. And we see an inverse relationship. The bigger medicine gets, the sicker the population gets. And so that doesn't mean we don't need it. It just means that there needs to be a dynamic shift. And we see it in our nursing population, right? Which is one of our biggest client bases. And we convert a lot of them into other jobs because they can't survive underneath the weight of it.
Right.
All right. Fascinating stuff.
So
we're going
hopefully
to get into all of it.
Much shorter, like realistic summary of like the whole thing. So,
well, Erica's going to kill me because I'm already going to change up the first question a little bit. Here, she's rolling her eyes at me already. She hates when I do this. Well,
it's the first question.
I know, but it just.
But Erica, it's in the changes that the magic happen. When I speak on stage and something goes wrong, you create a plan in order to have a guide rail, but then you break the plan.
Absolutely.
That's the point.
Thank you, Vince. I like him already. Okay, first I want to hear if you're willing to talk about what happened when you were 8 years old, and I'm assuming that led you to start your journey in becoming a metabolic mentor. Maybe not, but I mean, you touched on it briefly and said you had something when you were 8. What are you willing to share that?
So to pre-qualify me to this conversation altogether of why is my certification by life started at basically 7 years old when I started getting, so you have to understand that majority of the issues that Americans face today, while we give a diagnosis, so we'll say it's metabolic syndrome, or we'll say it's whatever it is, you're dealing with a myriad of factors that have a root cause that oftentimes are of unknown origin. And we see the world debating what this origin is. Is it calories? Is it toxins? Is it EMF? Is it chemtrails? Is it like whatever? And it starts getting really strange, because it gets way out there. And one of the reasons I'm explaining that is mine was a combination of trauma in the home and chemical exposure. So I grew up on a farm. And we figured this out later. This is the problem. So you don't know. Most people, when they start not feeling well, don't actually know why they don't feel well. They assume it's just their diet or this or that. And most of it actually starts mental. People start getting anxiety. They start getting nervous system issues. Their stuff starts to happen to them. And then physical things start to present later. And that's what happened in my journey. And then we figure out later through some tests, through what was going on, because I lived in the cornfields, and my aunt got cancer from those same cornfields. And my dad, was a great guy, by the way, and didn't do anything wrong. It's just, a combination of factors. But I got really sick, and so they diagnosed me with a few different things in gastrointestinal, OCD. It was mental and physical. And this is why you cannot disconnect those. That's why the psychologist is separate from the general practitioner or the GI specialist. It doesn't give it justice to how the system really works. It's very nice for people to get organized and get paid. It's like, you stay in the brain, I'll stay in the gut, you stay in the thyroid. Like, it all sounds great, right? It's like, listen, you stay over there, you make your money, I'll make mine. Don't get in on my people, I won't get in on yours. Everything's great. I'll become a specialist. But when I become a specialist, now I know nothing outside of that, right? And you need specialists for heart surgery, brain surgery. Like, great, I'm glad those exist. But you almost need people that either specialists that really work together, like a Cleveland Clinic, or you need generalists, people that understand the human body and how it works together, and is able to use multiple more modalities in an organized, 4F, organized process. And then you can create unimaginable results. If I were to give you the numbers on how we can solve diseases, you would go, this is insane, right? Why are we not doing more of this? And it's just because the system that we currently have isn't set up for it.
Yeah. You've built a strong reputation as a metabolic mentor, and our listeners are predominantly medical professionals. So I'm sure they're going to...
I hope I didn't make anybody upset. I love what you do. I love the heart, right? And I love the individuals. I'm just trying to explain the general problem.
I get that,
I appreciate that.
Especially with your mind. Like, if you're anxious or you're having depression issues, that totally can affect your health too. And it does. Definitely, there are different things that go hand in hand for sure.
We still need Western medicine. Understand this. Yes.
I get
we have
doctors.
We have doctors in our program, right? So like, So,
what formal qualifications do you hold in the field of nutrition or metabolism?
General education, certifications, and then being the guy behind. Again, I was sitting in on the cases. I was late nights with the doctors, helping them build their programs. So what they call functional medicine consultant is someone that comes in, learns insurance, knows the protocols, knows how to integrate other protocols when people are trying to add cash pay services or recurrent model services or integrate weight loss or other health services. Doctors are looking to figure out how to keep patients longer, get them into multiple programs, increase their LTV per patient, those kind of things, not just thinking about how to get more insurance, but also just like cash into the practice, right? And so I would sit in on all the protocols to understand what they were doing to integrate other services. So I literally learned, I was the guy behind it, whether it was an NP, DO, MD, ND, RN, if they were on their own, MP, or even a chiropractor, certain big chiropractic offices. So holistic and more Western medicine. And I saw all the little things that they were doing really, really well, but in a container by themselves weren't as effective when put in a system where they're all being kind of utilized.
So does it kill you that I'm drinking this Diet Coke? Like,
no,
do you look at me and like you're like,
no. There's a difference between a holistic zealot and a functional practitioner. I am practical.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So my argument, the research on aspartame is, believe it or not, is not that bad. In smaller, you would have to drink a lot of it. Right. And what it does to the microbiome if you drink a lot. I think there's problems with drinking caffeine late. But there's been plenty of research. I don't think a Diet Coke is going to be the thing that causes the problem. So it's just pretty well for dieting.
If it is, I'm going out real soon.
It's the cumulative load. So if you do a lot of other things really well, who cares about a Diet Coke?
That's what I'm talking about. All right, but that's good to know. As a metabolic mentor, have you ever faced any challenges in gaining recognition from the broader medical community? Like any skepticism? Do people in the medical field hear this and they're like, ugh? Or are they receptive?
I got my start in the medical community as a rep when I launched my business and say, I'm not doing this anymore, because I kept trying to build systems inside doctors' systems. And the problem is trying to change a practice is damn near impossible. Any doctor that's listening to this right now, that if you go, hey guys, listen, I want to start adding all these different approaches that are more full picture. They don't bring as much revenue in right away as our machine does, or these hormones do, or writing more prescriptions and what we get for our insurance billing, right away. And you guys have to learn all these new systems. Like the practice is going to resist it. No one's going to want to do it. You're going to have to wait for it to develop. And so we used to coach people through that, because it's hard to change your practice once it's rolling, or a health network. This is why in conventional Western medicine systems, this other stuff isn't ever going to happen. Because the way the systems are set up, unless you're a newer practitioner or you're totally willing to risk it and change your practice from the ground up, you just adopting this kind of stuff is just like, and maybe someone can understand this listening to this, is like, if you've ever tried to add something on that wasn't integrated into every little thing you did day to day, it just sat over in the corner like a redheaded stepchild or something like that, unused and unrecognized and not utilized correctly or taken care of. And then what ends up happening is you get rid of it because the profitability isn't there. So that's why when people are like, I want more options, I want more services, and they're talking to their doctor, but yet they're not willing to change their diet or do anything. Like, that's why, proactive care needs to be left outside the system for proactive people. It needs to be a separate system there's reactive people and proactive people.
True.
And so that's one of the challenges, right? So I decided to break out. And so I was partnered, and we do now. Much of our business is medical referral. And to doctors that are forward thinking, that are just like, I don't want to deal with this, right? I'm not set up for it. I'll hand her this and the meds and watch over the labs and all the other stuff, and you guys take care of the rest. And we do at a very high success rate. But yes, when I get out and I talk about the problems in the Western medical system, the first thing that comes up is the argument of authority. Okay, so like, you're not a doctor, which is pretty crazy to me, because all of the revolutions that have happened in almost every industry in the world did not come from someone classically trained in that field. Because it takes somebody outside the field to see the problems going on. It's called the expert's curse. And this is something that's been well documented. The more specialized that you get, the smaller your paradigm is, meaning the things that you validate or don't, or that you'll look at or even pay attention to. And in medicine, we get so specialized. And we've been conditioning our minds to think a certain way all the way from medical school, all the way through whatever, that we see the problem one way, and we can only see it that way. And it takes somebody that's kind of out of it, like me I was in hundreds of medical systems. So I had this really unique 10,000 foot view of a bigger problem. And so for me, it was like organizing it. And that's what's happened in almost every industry. And so people that have deep experience, and today is the information age, and with the teams that I have, I value clinical experience, meaning that I've overseen over 100,000 cases at this point in my career. That, like, you can't argue with clinical evidence, experience, and having that background. But it's easy to win an argument to just be like, well, you're not a doctor, I don't need to listen to you. And that's like, well, you're sorely mistaken, right? If that's the approach that you want to take, in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to comment on brain surgery. I don't know anything about brain surgery.
Thank God, Vince. We were getting worried there.
Like, I love it.
If Vince is going to say he's starting to read CAT scans and stuff, I might be a little concerned. But
yeah,
I mean, I think actually this podcast is valuable because obviously nursing, doctors, we're very science-based, science-focused. We need the statistics, we need the facts, we need to see the organized studies, and that's just how it is. That's where we're at. But there are other ways of thinking, and I find it interesting to hear different ways of doing things, or different ways of looking at stuff. I'm not sure that I may not agree with you by the end of this podcast. I don't know. And that's okay. I haven't decided yet, but
I think functional medicine is fascinating.
And there's plenty, by the way, there's plenty of research that you're just not being exposed to, and you're not looking, and you're not going to the conferences, and
maybe
you're not
not.
getting credit for it.
Right.
So like, there's that. And like, I'm working on the programs that we've developed. We're working on a process to get research done through USF. I'm working with the head, Bill Campbell, over there, creating for example, glaring problems in the menopausal community and the underrepresentation of women in research. It's very clear.
Yep.
And so there are clear limitations to research, and any nurse or any doctor cannot disagree that there's what they teach you in school, there's what you see in the research, and then there's clinical evidence, meaning like the things that I'm seeing when I'm in practice over and over and over and over and over and over. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And I don't think anybody can argue with that, right? So the problem is that you still will have your standard of cares created by research, which makes it difficult then to deliver what you want to do, but not get too far away of what you're expected to do. And that's where everybody gets limited.
Yeah. I mentioned that you've had several viral videos recently about nursing, which I have to tell you, my followers have been sending your videos to me in
Yeah.
droves, which is, why I reached out initially. You've said some really powerful things. One was that nursing is one of the most high risk careers in the United States. And you asked the question, how can we count on a medical system that can't even take care of its own people and expect it to take care of us? What has been the response that you've received to that?
Unprecedented. I've gone viral a few times before, but never like this, never with the messages of compassion and gratitude and all the struggling nurses, and not even just nurses, healthcare workers who put it on the line every single day to show up. And again, if any of my earlier statements came off that I don't care about healthcare workers or that I think that I'm so grateful that they exist, and I'm grateful that they put it on the line every single day. Half of our clients are healthcare workers, right?
Yeah.
We have to patch them up from what the system does to them in many ways, right? And what stress does to them over time, just like our military and things of that nature. And so I'm very grateful and indebted for the service that they deliver. But that being said, the amount of the waves of messages, I can't even get through them all, has been incredible in gratitude, because nurses and healthcare workers feel very unrepresented.
Oh yeah.
And they feel like their issues don't matter. And I can't disagree with that. Provided the evidence and the statistics of what we see today. And we think it's because the system's at a boiling point. We think it's coming to a head here soon, where something's going to have to change.
I completely agree. It is. Yeah.
I will say this statement is one that I agree with. That you have a controversial take. You're begging nurses to get the hell out of nursing, which I've done. I've already done it. So I fully support it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So one of the messages that we have is for people to leave. And there are multiple. You can go to part-time, get another job. We've been giving people resources because this is a problem that I've been dealing with specifically. In fact, how I got my start was most practices, their nurses were not in a great spot. So I would come in and help them with their health. And then that's why I became best friends with the practices and then the doctors and all the things. And that was one of my strategies of how I was effective with certain practices and got in everywhere. And so the problem is when you start with the individual and you see all the health issues they have, the skyrocketing rates of mental health issues, the skyrocketing rates of obesity, of cardiometabolic disease that you see, and it's overwhelmingly disproportionately affecting women. When you look at the research between men and women, and there is research that does exist in those environments, it is disproportionately significantly affecting women. And women are the primary bulk, or 80% at least the last research I've seen, of the workforce when it comes to, let's say, nurses.
Yeah.
But there's still, PAs, all of the list, techs, all of that. They're all feeling this.
Yeah.
And so when I would work with clients one-on-one that were dealing with these issues, they heal so much slower than everyone else because they're constantly under assault.
Yeah.
They're not prepared.
That's true.
Right. They're not prepared correctly. So a body that is constantly exposed to bacteria and viruses, that is under verbal or physical threat, that is then starved for 12 hours at a time, okay, which we're going to call it that, or underfed for 12 hours at a time. The body is an amazing machine. And what we're trying to observe through other research is how the body adapts to that environment. And women have an incredibly adaptive nervous system and bodies that will change dramatically. We see metabolic changes. That's why it takes less calories for them to gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
We see immune issues. Like if you looked at number of autoimmune conditions that exist amongst nurses, or amongst even just any high-level business professional that's under high duress for long periods of time. What I'm trying to get people to understand is the body is maladapting at some point to the point that it's making the entire population of healthcare workers almost unable to do their jobs. And then they wonder why workplace mistakes can go up, or they wonder why all these different issues come up. And it's because, to be honest with you, I don't believe the executive, of these organizations, the people that finance these organizations, I don't think they care that much, because it's not causing them that much of a mess. I really don't.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen, because we've worked with enough hospitals, we've worked with enough clinics, and when we try to get the person to make adjustments so that they can get healthy, they're met with zero accommodation, or there's nowhere to go. They don't want to join a union because it looks bad when you join a union. Like, what do you don't want to keep it on the line? What do you want to be different than us? What, you think you're different? We all suffer like this. Like, it's like everybody almost embraces the suffering as of like it's a common bond. And if you don't want to suffer as much, you're less of a person, kind of like motherhood. It seems like, it's a bit like that. And then also they don't do a good enough job coordinating amongst themselves. So what it looks like is that nurses are not banding together. And this
absolutely true. 100%.
I tend to see this in most workforces that are predominantly women.
Yep.
There seems to be an issue. Men seem to be able to form they'll get together and formalize way more than women. And there's this thing about, I don't know if it's, I don't want to get into psychology of it.
We are our own worst enemy, nurses.
Yeah. So they don't have each other's backs for whatever reason as easy and coordinate, because they should be able to time their breaks. There should be things that they could do, coordinate together, because they don't coordinate. They also just don't have great representation.
Well, a lot of that comes back to no resources. Like we want to take our breaks. Believe me, we want to take our breaks, but it comes down to this patient may very well suffer a complication if I go on break, because we are so understaffed and under-resourced and pushed to stretch to the limit, Yeah. We're set up for failure.
And then how well is somebody really going to listen out for your patient when they can barely keep up with their assignment? They already have too many of their own. And then you get to a point that you're just like, well, I guess I just won't go because somebody's going to suffer,
The interesting thing when we pay attention to blood sugars, blood markers, when we watch metabolic rate, meaning how many calories can I eat without gaining weight, and we track this closely, when women stay under threat of physical, verbal violence, and then also are exposed to viruses and bacteria, it upregulates their immune systems. There's two parts to your immune system. Basically, you have your initiation phase and your resolution phase. So those are different immune cells at activity. Okay, they are driven heavily by your autonomic nervous system. So you've got your sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? So fight or flight, rest and digest. Okay. The problem is under the threat or perceived threat, you stay into sympathetic dominance all the time. And whenever we look at jobs like that, what we see is rates of cancer, we see heart attacks, cardiovascular disease, weight issues. Now, some of it's the emotional component that we go out and eat our emotions away or drink our emotions away or whatever it is we do to deal with that discomfort.
But both.
Right?
Yeah.
But what we also see, and I think people will find this fascinating, is it's not merely a matter of CICO in terms of like, if I just eat less calories than what I burn. No, because the body's under sympathetic dominance gets so adapted that your metabolic rate gets so efficient that every year it's getting slower and slower, even if your body composition's the same. Okay? Understand what I'm saying? So now inflammation keeps rising and your body becomes less successful in a high calorie, high carbohydrate environment. And so that's why you start seeing what we call cortisol moon face, where you get very swollen. You start gaining weight and you can't lose it very easily because you're staying stuck in sympathetic dominance. And what that does to the nervous system, and then what that does to the immune system. So the immune system, it always stays in initiation phase. Okay. This leads to increased risk for autoimmune disorders, all kinds of metabolic disruption. And then you don't actually heal. That's why injuries will lag longer, aches and pains are going on, all this stuff's happening, and you're under such a physical job. And so this is one of the main issues that we have one of the biggest concerns with. And that's why there needs to be more, just if you're going to get into the field, stop selling these nurses or potential nurses. What an amazing career. You're going to make so much money.
Exactly.
And then not
stop
give them any education.
It. Be
and then not give them any education about how you're going to have to take care of yourself. Because when you get off work, people just continue to do the same behavior with their kids, with their family. It's a pattern. It gets ingrained in you and you can't shut it off.
Yeah.
So you're still the last at home, just like you're the last at work. So you're eating whenever you can get to it. You're doing whatever, and you're not learning to rest your body. Your body's not going into rest when you go home.
Erica, can you believe we're already in March? And you know what that means? That means Nurses Week is right around the corner, literally. I mean, we'll be there, and by May, here it is. And
one of the, I think, most economical and useful things that you can get for the nurse in your life is Stink Bomb Odor Blocker, the leader in odor blocking technology. She has all these different sets, fruit basket, new grad kit, tons and tons of different scents to choose from. You dab it under your nose. It covers all the hellacious smells that nurses and healthcare workers have to deal with. Perfect gift for the health.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, if you have a favorite scent of yours that you love a candle in, I'm sure that they have it in that scent. Yeah, because she's got so many options. You guys really should go to stinkbombodor.com and use code UNCORKED15 for an additional 15% off your total purchase. Don't miss out on a gift for your nurse or coworker besties.
You know, nurses, we often work these irregular shifts, so what would you say is the best way to maintain metabolic health with our insane schedules? I know you've said that we're not overweight from overeating, that it's, from being chronically underfed and overstressed.
Can we clarify?
Yeah.
Our metabolisms are still slowing down, but we will have periods of overeating and undereating, right? But then when we overeat, our metabolisms can't take care of it because our metabolic capacity is declined. Right. So I don't want to say overeating isn't involved.
Yeah.
There's emotional eating, there's binge eating, there's all that.
For sure.
Okay? But I want to understand that if under a different environment, your metabolisms would be way more adaptable and would upregulate if you ate more carbs or ate more calories under a different environment.
Well, I think too, the truth is, when you grab something really quickly, a lot of the things that are available to grab quickly are not the healthiest
of
things. At
the hospital, it's crackers.
Of course.
And peanut butter.
Yeah, and that it has to play a huge role in it. Or somebody threw donuts on the counter because the manager felt bad. So that's,
Correct.
Yeah, I know.
Here you go, you peons. Here's some Krispy Kremes. So it's like you're like, I'm not going to get a chance. And you don't have the option of, I need to heat up my grilled chicken and my, brown rice and broccoli. And that sucks. I mean,
Yeah. So one of the adaptations that you'll see in people that are high performers is they'll have serum, not maybe fasting glucose, but their 2-hour postprandial or their glucose throughout the day starts to go up. So they'll go maybe from their 17, they're in their 70s. Now they're averaging in their 90s, and nobody acts like that's a problem because it's not in their 120s, which is diabetes. That as you keep creeping up, it's called metabolic inefficiency. You're supposed to go from a sugar to a fat burning state all the time in your body. And the more that your sugars are going up, the less of a fat burning state that you're going into. And that leads to more oxidative stress. That leads to a lot of other health issues that then develop. And one of the things that we see is a really strange adaptation that I'm trying to get people to understand is with women under these environments, you do not starve them in stress. You feed them. Because, for example, I can get blood sugars down by getting you to eat, getting appropriate insulin release, and then pulling sugars back down. Intermittent fasting in women will work, which is what that is basically, will work, but it gets maladapted. You can't keep doing it. You can't live that way for life, or it backfires majorly. So I would agree with you. The nutrition should be better, but we're really talking about calories in, calories out right now. And the reality is your capacity, whether you eat spinach or you eat a bonbon, is reducing. And your insulin sensitivity is reducing. So now that bonbon's making you gain more weight when it didn't before. And so all of those issues start to come up, which is why inflammation rises and why so much disease then ensues in nurses, along with all the other stuff, the emotional conditions, the relationship issues. It ends up spilling into every part of your life. Like if you look at I think the rates of, I think I saw data, and if I'm wrong here, you can correct me, but I've looked at data a few times when they looked at like relationship and mental health issues in the nursing population, and it's not great.
It's not at all. Yeah.
No, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
One of your videos mentions, I guess, a survival guide for nurses with 3 tips. Can you share some of those tips for nurses that are listening?
Yeah. So the first thing that we have to recognize, and nursing or healthcare is a professional sport.
Yep.
Okay.
Often
It is a professional sport. Why is it when we get into high executive careers or high stress careers that in sports, if I was going to take a woman and I was going to put her through 12 hours of activity, physical duress, emotional duress, guess what I'm going to do as a coach? I'm going to prepare you. We need to eat before you go in. We need to give you quick squeezes or like whatever we got to give you to keep you in the game, to keep your energy high, to keep your focus high. Runners, what are they doing? They're hitting their Gatorades, they're doing whatever in between. They're getting properly prepared for it. And then they're also feeding after. They're doing things like physical exercise, stretching, breath work, meditation, all these different things to clear their mind because of the intensity of it all. They have sports psychologists. But when it comes to nursing, it's like you should just get it. You don't need any education on how to take care of yourself. Just go in there and everything will be fine. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely
right.
It's
a professional. It's such high stress, just like a professional sport.
I love that analogy. I really do.
You've got to go pro at your lifestyle if you want to be a nurse and serve. And this is the argument to moms out there, executives out there, nurses out there. It is not a luxury to take care of yourself. It is an unrealized responsibility that if you care so much about everyone else, then they deserve 100% of you when you show up. And right now, they're getting 60% of you because you're not doing the extra part. Now, does that mean it is their fault that with the way that CEOs only have 3 years and they want to make their bonuses?
Yes.
So they're
yes, it is. Yes, it is, Vince. It's very much their fault. Sorry, I'm a little bitter about the CEOs, but Wait, it is their fault.
Is it their fault as in the nurse's fault? No.
Oh, no, no, not
this
the
is where
nurses.
I'm still talking about the nurse.
Okay.
So in every system, there's an individual responsibility and there's a system's responsibility.
Yeah.
And the system we cannot control. Can we agree on this, ladies?
It doesn't seem like it. We're trying, but it's not happening.
So trying the top-down approach isn't very effective in the short, although we need to keep working on it for the long. In the short, if I want to change lives, I have to be able to change your mind and how you view your life and your responsibilities and what you do. And you have the capacity in you. It is in you to do 5x more than you are doing right now. The problem is you are emotionally exhausted. You are not fatigued. Okay. The problem is you've been fueling yourself the wrong way. The problem is you don't know how to post-care yourself after the game, the 12 hours. We don't know how to manage our lives. We don't know how to manage our finances to invest in ourselves to get more out of our lives. No one's taught us how to do this, and we just think it should come natural, like a child coming out the womb to crawl. It's not inside of us. It has to be taught to us. You don't have to leave the career, but you have to be willing to get rid of a vacation, or you have to be willing to get rid of that thing that you love to buy online or whatever it is, and invest that back into yourself. And when you don't have much self-worth, you have a hard time doing that because you see it as a luxury, when in the reality is it is a responsibility. Every healthcare practitioner should have to involve 6 months. And I really think this is what we've been championing, that there's some kind of shared, and that's why insurance, we've been working on that, but it's just not going to give you the right care you want. It's like the hospitals need to invest in their staff because they'd have way less workplace mistakes. You'd have way less missed days. You would have way better environments, healthier environments to invest in group coaching. But then those people actually have to do it. And most people don't want to change, right? Because they're afraid of it, or they're just stuck in their patterns. Their lives are kind of like stressed out. So they love their Doritos so much that like, that's the only thing that gives them happiness anymore. And they're stuck in these places. And I want to rip them out and show them that like, you don't have to live this life.
But yeah, nurses are a creature of habit usually. And that can be hard to change what you know. Like what we know is what we know. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to break out of what you're used to. And the unknown is scary sometimes.
Let me ask you all a question. One of the things that I thought might help provide a solution, and I've seen it in travel nursing, I think it really helps when hospitals don't employ the nurses, but that there is a consulting organization that represents them in leasing them for periods of time. And I'm wondering if that's not part of the solution, is that almost all nursing should be under representation and negotiation, because it worked out for travel nurses, although that's still a very hard area. And I do, some hospitals do contract work. They don't, they don't employ all of their nurses.
I mean, it's really just travel nurses. If you say contract, I mean, that's really kind of what it is. But the problem there is then that you're not an employee. It comes with, benefits, but then you're not an employee of the facility, and they can and do often just get rid of you. And then you have virtually no recourse most of the time.
But you're an employee, you're employed by the actual contracting firm. Like there's one of the largest ones in the United States is in Cincinnati. And I work with a lot of nurses out of there. And they've got it way better when someone's like negotiating a contract for time, they can choose to renew it. Anyways, like maybe that's not a real solution. I've asked a lot of experts and getting a lot of opinions.
A lot of people just aren't comfortable with changing constantly. Like I know me, I never wanted to do travel because I like what I know. And it's very difficult to adapt and learn a whole nother system, a whole nother hospital, a whole nother format, a whole way of doing things, new doctors. I mean, there are so many elements that go into trying to pull somebody out of, you're relearning every time you're sent somewhere else. And by the time you get to know it, it's time to go somewhere else. And that's hard. But I mean, for anybody, certainly. It's difficult. So I don't know if that is the answer, but I do think nurses being represented in whether it's a union or, I mean, they definitely need some type of middleman, because obviously what's happening right now isn't fucking working. Sorry, but it's not. I mean, you just have people that are concerned about money, and that's what their ammo is how to bring the organization in more dollars. And that doesn't involve caring or giving a shit about us.
Yeah, it looks like, and maybe you take a look, enough people that I've interviewed now, it looks like the average CEO to these organizations lasts 3 years, and they know it. They know they're going to be short. They know it's not going to be long, and their goal is to hit their bonuses. So the easiest way, I have 7 businesses, and I help build other people's businesses. We help scale nurses. Like we can get them out. We can get them certified in preventative health coaching to work part-time. We can easily get them 7 clients. Will get you an extra, $25,000 a year on your own in preventative health. We help facilitate that at Metabolic Mentor University. But one of the things that comes up a lot when we talk about, and this is where my mind was going on this with nursing, is that is it possible to have nurses just continue to have the same contract long term with the network, or because in these cases, here's what happens when I'm talking about the reason I will go back to the contracts. These CEOs cut costs of fulfillment, right? So cutting costs of fulfillment, what does that do? So it puts more patients, on per nurse, right? Insurance companies are also, though, cutting back on what they're giving, because it's really hard for this whole, everybody forgets. We want to point fingers. We are having unprecedented levels of sickness today, unprecedented levels of people with lifestyle disease. And it is showing up on the waves of these medical systems that are truly, in my opinion, ill-equipped to handle the load. And so what happens is underneath the weight of that is that insurance companies cut back on what they're paying. And you got to hit a certain number of quota to get paid. Also, hospitals are getting paid per prescription. So you got to get the prescriptions out of there. You got to see the certain number of people. The CEOs coming underneath that is having a hard time fighting back. I know that some legislation should be changed there, as I've heard about some things in different states and then federally. But then the easiest thing, as I was telling you about building businesses, is that the easiest thing to create profits is to cut fulfillment. So I can come in and show you really quick. I can make anybody a little bit more money. I know where to cut corners. So that's like, cut.
We're the largest workforce in every single healthcare organization, regardless. And so we are the number one thing on the chopping block. Oh, if we just get rid of 20% of our nurses, that's going to equate to this much more revenue and profit. Yeah. And that's what they do time and time again.
And no CEOs typically are not medical practitioners themselves or have not worked in the field.
A lot are not.
Occasionally, but yeah, a lot are not. A lot of them are like a 30-year-old MBA.
Right. Yeah.
That's
so,
it,
that's where you end up. You don't have granted, CEOs can jump all kinds of careers, and from the top, you don't have to maybe know all the technicals, but in this field, that's one of those areas where it becomes a challenge. So that's where I go back to, if enough nurses leave or get part-time jobs and won't put up with certain things, says no to certain things, then I think that the system's going to have to adjust.
Oh, absolutely. But nurses are inherently cowards. And I say this all the time, and people lose their mind, but it's true because I've witnessed it for 30 years. They complain all day long at the nurses station in the break room, but they won't take action. And it's the craziest phenomenon ever, because we will advocate all day long for our patient, but we will not advocate for ourselves. And you ask them to do anything actionable, immediately scared to death. Nope, because, they're going to fire me, the retaliation. And retaliation is always a possibility in nursing. Illegal, but still a reality. They won't take the action to do those things. It's so frustrating.
It's built into the psyche, because it's the same thing with moms and children.
Yeah.
Right. It's built into motherhood. It's built into the way that we work. And these are some of the social, psychological aspects of overcoming what I call lifestyle disease. I believe that mentality is a disease in and of itself. Right. And so working through that and breaking through that, I think is the biggest challenge, because once you do, then everything can start to change, but so that's why, again, real health is both mental and physical well-being done together, in my estimation.
You've talked about something called Anhedonia. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that or not.
Yeah.
AKA pleasure deafness, which I think is fascinating when you apply it to nursing. Can you tell us about that with we get off work and?
Yeah. So when we look at drug addiction, so whether it's substance, and I've had the opportunity, again, to give a little background here on working with many top addiction specialists, but also neurologists that do brain scans, looking at the brains of high performers, people that have suffered trauma, early childhood trauma. You can look at the rates of disease later. It's through the roof, with PCOS or autoimmune disorder. So whether it's trauma, whether it's exposure to high-risk experiences, so like air traffic controller or nurse or a boxer. This is where I go back to sport. Okay. Right. Because of the same high-risk experiences. Or if you're someone that was chronically exposed to a substance, right? Our brain firing sequence, like our firing patterns and parts of our brain that seem to go slightly dormant or not as active, or our behavioral patterns are actually all very similar in terms of our response to dopamine and dysregulation of our nervous system. And then something called the midbrain, which is the VTA, to give it a different term that maybe some people would be more familiar with. So what then happens is that we get dysregulated response. And so the same glass of spilt milk, once we're under dysregulation over time, creates such a release of dopamine and glutamate that like the spilt milk is such a big deal. And it's like, well, is that really a big deal to elicit the response? So we're under this all the time at work. So then when we go home and we try to relax, our bodies have become so used to high levels of dopamine and glutamate production that when we go to be at rest, when we go to calm down, levels begin to decline. And just like, let's say, an alcoholic who isn't drinking anymore and is in this place of, why do I not feel comfortable? Why am I restless, irritable, and disconnect? Why am I always focusing on the things that are wrong in my life? Why am I not getting enjoyment out of life the way that I used to get? Why am I feeling more general malaise or depression? What is going on with me? And then we look for something outside of ourselves to be to be the solution. Like, well, there must be something wrong with my relationship, or this or that, to align. The strongest connection, or the strongest power in the human body and the mind, is to stay consistent with what we believe and how we feel. So maybe some of you have felt this before. Have you ever had a period about to come on, but not be aware that it's about to come on?
Mm-hmm.
And you have these thoughts that you're certain are true. And then once you realize that you're having your period, you go, oh.
Yes.
Right?
All the time.
And you go,
yes.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Yes. And what is with the amnesia every month where it's like, why does my back hurt? Why is my back suddenly sore? And I never connect the two. And then
Erica
suddenly,
can never figure out why she's a rip-roaring bitch sometimes. And then her period starts. And we're like,
and then the next day, you get your period. And it's like, that's why my back hurt. But why do you forget that every single month? It's the craziest thing.
Now, there tends to be people that are like that, and they tend to, when we look at genes, we do genetic testing, you tend to have more of the warrior gene. There's genes called COMT, MAOA, MTHFR. There are genes that also can manipulate the length of your dopamine strains. And people that tend to have shorter tend to be people that like are high performers, but also have terrible short-term memory.
Do you know what we call the
long-term memory.
MTHFR? Do you know what we call that?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it. You can.
Yeah.
As a labor nurse, we always said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nobody could remember what it stood for. So that's
it's good. It's fine. Yeah. Right. So, but just to draw this in is that what happens is we become more obsessive compulsive. We become more attached. We get attachments rather than connection, because when you're dopamine, have you ever been to a weekend seminar or gone on this trip that was just really high experiences? Or maybe some of you in here have ever been to something like a rave before, or a festival, okay? Or like I don't know what people are into. And then you get home from the concert or like the 5 days and you just can't feel anything. You're just kind of like generally depressed, right? Yeah. And then you start asking yourself, what's wrong? Why do I feel this way? Well, there's nothing really wrong. It's what's recalibrating inside of you. It's dopamine does what estrogen does, just so everybody understands the way it works. And when we're getting a lot of high risk experiences, our dopamine receptors get desensitized. And then it takes way more dopamine to feel normal. Do you understand? So when I go to relax at home, I can't relax because when I go to relax, I don't feel normal. Something feels wrong. Yeah. I feel restless, irritable, and discontent. And so then I start looking for things outside of myself to make me feel okay. Starbucks does not sell coffee. It sells certainty.
Yep.
Okay? So
it sells crack.
Because the minute that you take a sip of your coffee, you can say it's the taste. You can say whatever you want and the acquired taste over time. But the first thing you do is go,
It's comfort. That's
true.
But what is comfort?
And familiarity. It's a routine. It's a ritual.
But it's more than that. Certainty is safety. Mm-hmm. Like when I take my drink and I get a little bit of dopamine and I get a little bit, I feel safe. Like I can handle things. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to be okay. I'm going to be all right.
Yeah, it does.
That makes sense.
That.
But when you don't have it,
that's not
you
good.
start feeling like I'm not safe. Things aren't okay. Something's wrong.
I get what you're saying for sure.
And so then this is because again, in my 20 years when I was sick, just so you guys know, I found street drugs at year 10 and it calmed everything down. And then the drugs worked until they didn't. And then I almost died of an overdose.
And then you need more. You need
more.
more.
Just like everything else in life, food, whatever it is. And so what I want you to understand is then nurses don't know that they're under this, just like you're going through your period and you don't know it. No one's told them this, because as soon as you recognize the pattern, you're like, oh, I know what this is. So Erica goes, oh, like I'm about to have my period, and then adjusts herself mentally and emotionally for the hormonal change.
And then she calls me and apologizes.
There you changes your actions.
I love you, Erica.
Changes your actions. Do you understand what I'm saying now?
Yes, I totally get what you're saying.
Because people don't realize their dopamine's doing this, that they're under these, what we call now the anhedonia is designed for people in a very rare. I'm using that term because it still has anhedonic dysregulation, happens in gradients, meaning that some people get it lightly and some people get it heavy. People like me with CompT and a few other genes get it really heavy. So I get intrusive thoughts. I can tell when I'm going into the pattern and I need to go meditate, walk, hug fur babies. I need to have talk therapy. I need to eat clean, because if you eat clean, it stabilizes your dopamine. That's why you don't want to eat the bonbons and the stuff like that, because it creates more chaos. So what happens is that we get dysregulated, we get desensitized, and every year it gets worse and we don't come back out of it like you do from the weekend seminar. You go to a weekend seminar, you're like, yeah, everything's great. You go home, you feel lightly depressed. 48 hours later, you're back to baseline. That stops happening. You start going less and less and less. And in order to get the dopamine, you need to have more high risk experiences. So you choose chaos. You'll get on and fight with your friends. You'll get on social media and find out what's wrong. You'll want to put yourself into the drama.
Stop adding me, Vince. Stop it.
Even though you say you hate drama, and you would admit that it is injurious, you are compelled to it, right? You're compelled to it. And so this is what happens with food, CNN, Fox, Netflix, all of these things that we use as artificial attachments to make us feel okay, because the industry that we are in has burned us out and we do not feel human connection anymore, which is why, like, I could be sitting in a room with the people that I love, fighting for this life that I've created, and I don't feel happy. I don't feel enjoyment. And then I go, oh, something must be wrong with my life, why I feel this way. No, you're about to have your dopamine period. You are okay. And what we have to do is we can resensitize that. There are dopamine receptor products you can take, cleaning up your diet, exercise, meditation, prayer. All of these things switch you into the feminine, your parasympathetic. Women that are in these jobs cannot fall back in the feminine. They don't tend to trust people. They want to do everything. They try to control everything.
He keeps adding me, Jessica. He won't stop it.
I don't know. Maybe he's been stalking your profile. I don't know what to tell you.
This is the root. This is what I'm trying to tell you, right?
I don't know. I'm perfect. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't have any.
I'm like, I do that.
We are too much alike. That's the problem, Jessica.
Yes, we probably are. But hey, this is really important. This was not a question I had planned. Here we go again. But I think it's really important to say one big thing with nurses is pain. I know we're addressing a lot of dietary stuff, but nurses are physically in pain when they're at work because of, I don't know, maybe they got injured by a patient. Maybe they've been pulling on
We're not allowed to sit down when we're charting anymore. A lot of places purposely took away the chairs for nurses. Isn't that insane? So 13 hours on your feet on hard floors.
Yeah. When you started comparing it to a sport, sports people, when they pull a muscle, they have people help them. They have whatever it is, a doctor look at it, a masseuse, whatever the thing may be. But we don't have any of that. Like nothing. And they're literally, nurses retire faster. There's nurses that are, burnt out quicker because it's hard to function in pain. I just was wondering if you had any advice for that.
So there's, again, diet has so much to do with your emotional well-being. When your cortisol, so something people don't realize, if you don't support adrenal function, cortisol and cortisone, okay? And anybody can give me feedback on this, but we measure these levels. We watch it through different tests. We understand that when there's 4 stages of adrenal fatigue, okay? So there's 1, 2 where you overproduce cortisol. Stage 3 and 4, where you start to underproduce cortisol. The problem is that your body takes cortisol and then some of it converts, much of it converts into cortisone. What is cortisone? What do we know? It helps as an
Inflammatory, yeah.
Okay. Your body makes it. Okay. But when you're burnt out, you're not making enough cortisol to make enough cortisone. It gets converted by your kidneys. Inactive cortisol becomes cortisone. And so when you burn out your adrenals because you don't have enough vitamin C, you're not feeding yourself well enough, you're not sleeping, you're not having appropriate melatonin release, so then you don't have enough cortisol release in the daytime, nighttime circadian rhythm, then all of a sudden you just start getting really achy, right? So now my joints hurt, I'm getting more inflamed. So supporting the adrenals is part of it. The other part is strong anti-inflammatories that are natural. Like there's, high levels of curcuminoids, using, I like type 2 collagen. There's a whole world of functional medicine called SCRM technology, selective kinase response modulators. These are products like Caprex. These are products like Osteovantiv. They are revolutionary in a multi-pronged approach to getting rid of inflammation. But obviously it starts with your diet. And also you have to be active outside of the workplace. You got to get your walks, water therapy. You've got to get a little bit of resistance training in so that your body can prepare for the stress internally. And then ironically, when you're in pain, you should, as long as it's not a direct break or something like this or whatever, you need to actually move more to get rid of the pain. So meaning that if I work out, I'll have less pain in the work, even though I'm in pain at work.
That makes sense. But you're right about the inflammation part, because I remember my last few years and bedside, my neck was in knots constantly, painful. I mean, and I think it's because you carry this tension, you're tense, you're tightening up, and you never really do the right things to be able to take care of yourself. And it's like this endless cycle, it builds on itself,
And if you ever notice the nurses of a certain age, when they get to be late 40s, early 50s, and they're still doing bedside, they are like, I can no longer do 3 12s in a row. You have to break up the days. I cannot physically do it. It's that painful and that physical.
What if I told you that we take 40-year-olds all the time? We get their inflammation down. We optimize their hormones. We get them a little bit stronger. And guess what? They could do that till they're 60. What our expectation of what our body's limitation is what's common to the body today is not normal to the body. I want people to understand the environment that they are under. Nobody is approaching it correctly. And so you look at everyone around you and everyone else is messed up. So you're like, oh, this is just how life is. No, that's how it is there. To your knowledge, with what you have today, it does not have to be that way according to now modern science and all the optimization that you can do. But you have to be willing to invest in yourself, right? You're either going to pay in money or time. It's like, am I going to lose time in my job, right? Or am I going to invest a little bit more money, even though it's a little tight, to figure out how to take care of myself? That's why Vital Coaching exists. We work with CEOs, moms of 5. Everybody thinks they don't have time. Time is an emotion. I want Erica, do me a favor. Pull up your phone and go to search screen time.
Oh, boy.
Search screen time, Erica.
I bet it's 11 or 12 hours. Way up there. I know it is.
If anyone ever tells you I don't have the time, it's just not there. I just don't have it.
You do.
What they're telling you is they're emotionally exhausted. They're not out of time.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, pull out your phone, look at your screen time. Guess what? I just found your time.
Yeah. You're right. No, you're
I don't
totally
like
right.
you anymore, Vince. I don't know if I like. He called me out. Okay, y'all want now? Granted, I want to say our jobs are on social media, so this is part of
fair enough. Fair enough.
10 hours and 55 minutes on average.
Now, how many times you want to know? You want to know when you're under Anhedonia, Jessica? And if you don't know it,
I'm under something. I don't know what
Have you ever caught yourself scrolling, going, stop it?
All the time.
Stop it.
All the time.
Okay. Do you know why you're doing that? Is your dopamine's getting too low and you're trying. So do you know the most addictive thing that they found in research? Over food is this movement in human beings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because
So
I find that if I haven't had time to do it, I'm crabby. I'm like,
Yeah.
I haven't.
And you feel like you're missing out on something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But you're not. What's going on is it's inside of you, and it just needs your body needs to be normalized. And what that means is, like for me right now, I was going through that. So I've had to increase my walks. I've had to really balance out my diet. I've had to make sure I sleep just a little bit more. I take a couple products that we have. One's called, I like Alpha Brain, but then there's a detox shake that really helps clear me and even me out. I really need to focus on my gratitude. Like I got to take, and if I wait 3 to 7 days and I don't judge it and I get consistent, I'll get so reconnected. My passion will be there. I'll have all the ideas that I need to get going. And when you do that, when you learn to how to really actually use your amazing skills as a human being, when you understand how to override what's going on, then you'll stop doing all the little things that are slowing you down from the thing that you were meant to do with your life. You will achieve fulfillment to the level that you expect. It's all the little things in the middle that we cannot see that are controlling our altitude and our ability to ascend. That is one of the main ones. Anhedonia is the reason we are not where we think we should be. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's the underpinning to the nurse, to all these different conditions, the rate limiting factor. Even though I don't like the medical system as it stands, it is disproportionately affecting women. I will scream it to the hilt. I know I'm working with them in every level of medicine every single day. I've been in the field for so long. You can't tell me, even though I'm not a doctor. At the same time, the human capacity to revolutionize how your body manages stress and to have the life that you want is within your control, no matter your circumstances. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. It's still not right, and we need to change it.
Yeah.
But in the interim, that ain't changing for 30 years. And apparently 30 years is all you got. So you see where I go with this, right?
Yes, I gotcha. I get it. We're going to be handing out our weekly Enema of the Week award, which is sponsored by our lovely sponsor, Happy Bum Co. And as always, Erica has a wonderful recipient of the Enema of the Week award to hand out this week.
Enema of the Week.
I want to say, for those of you that are leery about doing an at-home enema, they are a wonderful company. Happy Bum Co. has a beginner's bundle. Yes, for the beginner, the novice enema person, it is an amazing product. I love Happy Bum Co. I just went traveling. Traveling always gets me out of whack. And my Happy Bum Co. brought me back to my norm.
You know, I love that it is a guaranteed break during your day when you do this, you know, because you have no choice but to lay down, right? And relax and let it take its course. So, you know, kind of just built in rest period.
You can't get up and start sweeping the house.
No.
When you've got that going on. So yeah, it's a little bit of me time and it brings amazing relief. So head to happybumco.com and you can use code Nurses Uncorked and get an additional 15% off of your first bundle. Definitely check it out. What do you got, Erica?
Yeah, it's not a person. It is a proposed bill, a proposed amendment in Washington State, House Bill 1220. So if a healthcare worker is assaulted, if passed, this amendment would change the assault charges for patients that are there for mental health evaluation. They would face a lesser charge than anyone else.
Oh,
Obviously
has anybody else done? Has anybody else done that? Another state that you know of, or another?
I'm not sure. There might be other kind of legislation, but if you are a healthcare worker and you know that oftentimes these patients know exactly what they're doing, just because you are having a mental health issue does not mean you're not always cognizant of what you're doing and that you know it's wrong, right?
True.
So if you are in Washington State and you agree that this is problematic, you should reach out to your representatives and urge them to vote no on this amendment, House Bill 1220.
Absolutely, because we know mental health, or it's a very broad spectrum, so you can't loop everything underneath there and say that you probably were under some delusionary state or whatever, because that's not always the case. So,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. This enema's for you.
Wanted to ask you, you touched on it earlier about intermittent fasting. And you said that it's not good long term. So is there
Not
like a
consistently.
magic? Because I am huge. I've done this for years and years before it was ever a trend and anyone knew what it was. I feel like I naturally just kind of do this. I never want to eat until like 4 o'clock. And I naturally have like a 6-hour kind of eating
That's
window.
a stress adaptation. Yes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then I also like once or twice a year, I do a long fast. Like I'll do
Yes, great idea.
72 hours.
That's one of the ways to re-regulate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I find it to be really easy. People are like, how do you do that? I'm like, it's not even hard. I don't know why. So am I doing more damage over time by continuing to?
But you're probably noticing, Erica, that your metabolism's slowing down.
Oh yeah.
And it's getting a little bit harder and harder. This is what I'm talking about. Your body gets adapted. It's not that wasn't healthy, but it's not doing anything for you anymore. You're not getting much medicinal benefit out of it because you've kept doing it. The human body responds to seasons. Okay, it's called diet variation. And because the world doesn't recognize this, when you look at research, it took researchers, and don't give me, I can't give you, I think it was like 50 years into research. I could be wrong about how long it took us to, no, I think it was like 30 years into research that we finally recognized the placebo effect. We didn't know what we were looking at until we realized that 1 in 5 people who believe it's working will get better. And that's how your immune systems work, by the way. And that's the nervous system. That's what I was telling you about before. That now, what I want you to understand is every time you see diet research, what they don't realize what they're seeing is simply because the person totally changed what they were eating. If you went from protein to carbs, it'll work. You go from, and they say it's just about caloric deficits. It's not, because we see improved markers even without lowering calories. It's the fact that you totally change your diet. So you go from meat to vegetarian. You go from vegetarian to keto, whatever. The same thing. When I go from eating all the time to eating in shorter windows, that's really good for 8, 12, 16 weeks. But women's bodies maladapt. Like if you were to wear a CGM right now, Erica, you would see that your sugars are continuing to go up. This is what I'm trying to, even with the fasting, this is what I'm trying to tell women all over the world.
What do I do?
Well, the first thing you need to realize is that if your metabolism is slowing down, your muscle in metabolic rate does not slow down until you're like 65. So the idea that your metabolism slows down is inaccurate.
That's interesting.
Now, granted,
that's good to know, because people always use that excuse. I'm in my 40s. Just what happens,
right?
You know?
No. Part of what's happening, 2 things are happening. 1, they're not moving as much. It's called the NEAT. They're not moving as much. 2, they are losing muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3, they're eating less protein and more carbs. And the thermogenic effect of protein burns more calories than eating carbohydrates by itself through digestion. But 4, hormonal decline lowers metabolic rate. And then 5, stress maladaptation. So what I want people, if any doctors listening to this, start tracking the metabolic rates of your clients, because I tell you, when they start to decline in 3 to 5 years, they will have disease. It is a biomarker, just like glucose, just like triglycerides, just like LDL and total cholesterol. And because we ignore that and we just tell the woman when they come into the practice, eat less, move more.
Yeah,
like
exactly what they say.
Yeah,
that's not realistic. Okay, it is true that we need to do that, but it's not comprehensive, and it's actually 50% of women out there are not represented in research. The research that we're doing right now, do you know how hard it is to find research participants? So hard. If you understand like research.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is you're only going to find people that are overfed and understressed. There's not nurses doing research. Do you know why? They don't have the time.
Yeah.
And they're not taking your $50 a day, whatever it is, okay? So what I want people to realize is that, yes, half the population is sitting on a couch eating ho-hos, not working out enough, not being active enough. And then the other half is overactive and underfed. And they're not researching it. So we see it in clinical evidence. There's plenty of clinical evidence. right? We all see it with our eyes, but everyone goes, no, you're just secretly eating more calories. It's like, no, nurses are on their feet all the time and they're eating less and less and they're gaining more and more. I don't want to hear it, right? I see it. We measure the calories. Everyone's eating every single day and we see what's happening. So the way to reverse it, the easiest thing that I can tell you on this is that the first step, there's 4 steps. That's why I have the 4F process. There's 4 steps to taking your metabolic rate right now, Erica. I could increase it by 500 to 700 calories and you would lose weight. So I literally in 12 days, you have your metabolic potential, meaning what you could burn, and your metabolic actual where you're adapted at. And in 10 days, I can feed you up here, up to higher, and get you to lose weight. So that's the research that we're working on. The book comes out in June. It's called the Flush Method. I can reset your nervous system. I can feed you way more carbs and calories. And I can, 92% of people out of 7,000 that we did, and now, 50,000 people do this a year now, but it's called the Flush Method. If every nurse just did this and reset themselves every 3 months, half their problems would go away. And all I need is 10 days. And if you think it doesn't work, then get your money back. Like that's how much of a guarantee we have on this. If you go to Vital, VIDLAL, Flush, it's a D, not a T, vitalflush.com, you'll learn all about it. It's all working with nurses. It's working with women specifically. We are focused on that. Or men. This will still work for men. It works great for men. In 10 days, I'll have you eating more calories, eating more carbs, losing weight, feeling great. Nervous system is calmer, so your capacity expands. And now all of a sudden, you don't gain weight eating that same pizza. And that's why I talk about all these different issues, because it can be changed. Erica, if I can increase your metabolic rate, I can reverse the potential for disease in your life, because when you eat a pizza or you drink wine or any of the things that you do for your attachments, if your body can burn it at the rate that you consume it, it's not a problem. So I don't really care if you eat pizza or the Diet Coke or the cheeseburger or the spinach. I just want your body to process it quickly and get it out of the system. And that's what goes away under high stress jobs over time.
Vince, you're making sense. You're making a little bit of a believer here in me. It honestly, it all does make sense. You know, when Erica told me we were having you on the show, I'm like, oh shit,
I get it.
What the hell are we talking about? I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
No,
you know,
yes.
I'm like, good God. I said, you saw he was good looking and you said, we'll have him on.
God. I love you
that
guys.
was what I told her. And she's like, and I was like, all right. But having that said, I do feel like that actually everything you're saying makes complete sense.
Jeff, I always really appreciate honesty, and you're the person I'm always looking to that is open-minded enough that I like interacting with. But I would argue, let me validate you and anyone that's listening to this. It is so hard to figure out who's telling the truth and who isn't when you get away from the medical field. And I went through that as a sick kid. And so it's, here's another person pushing whatever he's got going on or whatever agenda or like, whatever. And that's why I love being the person that can make the connection in the middle, because I am the middle where I can talk both languages and have comprehensive conversations that help us understand the gray area between what's in the research and what we can observe and what we see in a society and case study versus clinical evidence and then research, and then finding things in the middle that like people can agree on, because I want to bridge those together. But I would agree with you. Most of the people in my field are just complete. It's nonsense. And so I can't argue with that sentiment.
So yeah, I think I'm skeptical, and Erica knows this. I have a sister that is a fitness expert, and we don't speak. So I already have a little bit of a skepticism because of
fair enough
of that. But I appreciate not being like, there are some people that will talk to you with like being demeaning, almost like you're bad because you're not drinking the water. And that people are not receptive to that. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got to have an understanding, and you've got to be able to where they're at. Tell people why that they're doing this, and it's normal to feel that way. It's normal to get stuck in a rut. It's but yeah, of course, all of that makes sense. Your metabolism and changing that. I mean, it can make a huge difference. Yeah,
on both sides of the aisle, whether you're holistic, fitness, Western or Eastern medicine, functional medicine, we have to be very careful not to get ourselves put into identity politics or groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the medical system is we're so worried about peer judgment that no one wants to get out of line.
Yeah.
And so then everybody keeps in groupthink, regurgitating the same ideas that never go anywhere. It's a human problem, not necessarily like a Western medicine or a fitness community issue. And I don't have a camp. I'm kind of this loner.
And that's good, because I think a lot of, I don't want to just say like dietitians, but there are a lot of people that are more holistic though. But for me, one of the things is immediately when somebody starts saying to you, you will never need medication again, I will take you off of everything. To me, that is a red flag, because and that I think that will cause people to shut down. Like you can't say completely black or white that nobody has an actual disease process. That I don't care if you become freaking climbing Mount Everest and you're the most fit person. If you fucking got cancer, you got cancer. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like there are things that, and I don't like being told that you can get rid of your cancer completely if you buy my program.
Yeah, those are extremes.
That's dangerous.
I don't think
that's
any
dangerous.
of us. Yeah, I agree. I think that's like a 3% of like this field, but we get judged by the polar edges, right? And so with all respect to you, that's probably not okay. I have seen cancer be reversed, but that doesn't mean I recommend it. I've seen it, but that doesn't mean I think people should still go.
Is it by no sugar? Is that what you've seen?
Not
I'm serious,
necessarily.
because I think that fasting
programs.
I think that that's actually
it's
valuable.
Real.
It's
I've
real.
Met people. I shook their hand.
My background is pediatric oncology for many, many years. So like I fully support, the mainstream treatment for cancer patients.
Same.
But if it were me, this is just me.
Agreed. Same.
I would immediately cut all sugar out of my diet. It has
if that works, then great. But what I'm saying is, if it were me, I'd probably try both, because I'd want to fight to live.
Yeah.
I get it.
Exactly.
I would do, hey, whatever you tell me to cut out sugar, and I've got cancer, I'll fucking cut out sugar. Like, so I get that. Yeah.
One of the issues though we see is the third leading cause of like death right now is part of it is when you look at addiction and prescription medications, it's like the third or fourth. And it's because we're stacking so many meds. We don't know the interactions. I mean, they're trying to create pharmacists for hospitals to try to understand all the interactions.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's gotten so far the other way. You can understand why this population is getting more popular. And if we want to blame why people are giving them any credit, it's because of the failure of the Western medical system to appropriately control, I think, medication usage and not having alternative options. So we have to be very careful about.
Absolutely. It's a balance.
You have to look at it all together. But that's what I do. So I'm all about, I just believe in functional first. I think the first person you should see for anything that is not acute should be a dietitian, functional health practitioner. And then if you have to move on, but like in our program, you see the doctor. If you got high blood pressure, you can go on high blood pressure medication until you get your blood pressure down, and then you come off the medication.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Things go hand in hand. Obviously, if you're overweight, you're eating gallons of salt and all that. You get your diet under control, and eventually your blood sugar is going to come down. But that doesn't mean you don't need it at the time, because
I agreed.
You're
I think it's a great combination. And that's what functional is, by the way. Holistic is different. That's why I use, people don't know, like root cause still includes using, medication and Western medicine. I'm not like a holistic practitioner where it all has to just be herbs and, that's like all of that other stuff. I just think that that's just irresponsible. I want solutions. I want as many on the table as possible.
Yeah.
And let's actually create a plan though to your future and not just go on these meds knowing now that you're probably just going to stay on them forever, with no plan.
Right.
And then we just keep stacking them. And then the pharmaceutical companies keep skyrocketing in their profits. Yeah. No one seems to want to deal with this. And we aren't really getting that much better from it. So it's like, that's the challenge I see.
So I would say, so if somebody wants to try something different, Vince, and they want to, where can people look for you? What can they do to start this process?
I think the way to just kind of learn more is like go to my Instagram, Vince_Pitstick. It's an Australian deodorant, pit and stick. You can't mess it up. And my metabolic mentor YouTube. You can decide if you want to go down this journey further, and you can either work with our medical team at Vital Med, or you can just work with our coaches and our medical team at Vital Coaching. There are many avenues that we have to give people the kind of service delivery that they need to get where they need to go in life and achieve their dreams and get to full vitality. And so that would be Vital, VIDAL coaching.com.
Yeah. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much, Vince, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me and being open-minded. It was great. It was really great.
Yeah.
You were great. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Like we said, guys, we'll link everything in the show notes so that you can easily find Vince. And until next time on the next Nurses Uncorked.